Being Your Best You with Dr. Kyre Adept and Dr. Kevin Richardson. Have you ever had a day, an hour, a moment when you knew exactly who you are, in the right place, and knowing what you need to do? Would you like to feel the power and presence of being you at your best all the time? Almost all problems around health, wealth, relationships, and purpose can be solved when you are restored to you. And Dr. Kyre and Dr. Kevin are here to show you how. Dr. Kyre uses Geotran human programming, human design, and activations to quickly and easily release you from the automatic patterns and inner glitches that block your healthy, wealthy, happy life. Dr. Kevin is a clinical hypnotherapist with decades of experience in releasing the subconscious fears, beliefs, and habits that cause or contribute to experiences you no longer wish to have. Dr. Kevin specializes in releasing obesity and your blocks to success. Dr. Kyre and Dr. Kevin are both passionate about helping people improve their lives in person, by phone, or on Zoom. Yes, it's as easy to change your life long distance as it is in person. So, join the paradox as Dr. Kyre and Dr. Kevin discuss their different approaches to clearing your subconscious and restoring you to you with speed, efficiency, and a sense of humor. It's time for Being Your Best You with Dr. Kyre and Dr. Kevin. The Paradox. Welcome to the show.
Hello, this is Dr. Kyre Adept of Adept Activations and Dragon Divas. Yay! And let's see if I can get my hands correct. This is Dr. Kevin Richardson, clinical hypnotherapist. Woohoo! Of richardsontherapy.com. Oh, we are just all over the internet. You have no idea. As you can see, the weather's gotten a little colder, and actually, I'm bloody freezing. But that's not our topic today. Our topic today is self-confidence. And, I was thinking about this, Kevin, as we were, ramping up for the program today, because it so connects with what I am always working with people on, which is their identity.
Yes.
Yeah. So when we talk about self-confidence, what are we really talking about inside the person? I'm just going to hand that right over to you.
Well, this is a very interesting topic. Self-confidence refers to our belief in our abilities and our assurance that we can handle a particular task or situation.
Mm-hmm.
So confidence waxes and wanes based upon the situation and based on what we're faced with. So we may be very confident in one task, but very unconfident in another task.
Oh, yeah. In fact, I find that that's really, really common. I mean, I know supremely competent people who then there's just one area of their life, and it may be something they're really passionate about, but somehow they just don't really know how to come to grips with that. Yeah. And we're looking at them from the outside, saying, but here's this intelligent, competent person. How is it possible that he or she is, this is just like this one area that they don't see their own
confidence requires external validation.
Ah,
So, in order for us to develop confidence, self confidence, we need external validation. We need our accomplishments recognized and our past successes celebrated.
yes.
So, so it really relies on an external feedback.
And we all want validation. This is
We,
something my teacher said over and over again. There are two things that every human being desires. Yeah.
Mhm,
Valiancy, that is the internal sort of, yes, I am big, I am brave, I am strong, I am intelligent, I am
mhm,
whatever. So we
right.
might put that in the box of self-esteem, for instance,
Mhm,
as an
yep.
internal function. And they need validation. And as you say, we use things like affirmations and other, I was going to say tips and tricks. They're not tricks, but techniques maybe is the better word.
Technique.
We
Technique.
use up techniques like that to validate ourselves, but they are never as meaningful as that external well done.
Yes, and we seek that. We really do seek that. Now,
Yeah.
some folks, their self-esteem is so high that they don't need the external validation.
Hmm.
And then there are people that have a lower self-esteem, which re- which does require the external validation. So self-confidence depends upon the situation. It
Yeah.
depends on what we're doing.
Hmm.
Now, when it comes to techniques in hypnotherapy, I'm very confident about what I do.
Hmm.
When it comes to the computer, well, different story.
My Venn diagram actually, covers both of them because, because
Right.
I do a lot of internal computer programming. I'm fine with the external computer programming, and I'm really a master of the techniques that I use. So,
Right.
whee, me.
Right.
Okay, statement here. I've struggled with confidence my entire life. Now, that's where it's interesting, where we are making this distinction between the internal and the external
Right.
validation. Because um, when I'm working with someone about their self confidence, one of the things that I would look at, and I imagine you would as well, Dr. Kevin, is, well, has there been some time in the past when your the validation that you had, that you desired and to an extent had a right to expect, never
Mhm.
arrived? And or is it possible that somebody around you took a knock to their self-confidence and you are accidentally running that program now, like a computer virus, you
Right.
know?
Right.
So what I'm trying to say is, normally when we look at the difference between internal and external, at least in my work, I'm very focused on the internal stuff. And I
Mhm.
know how to change all that. And people come back to me and say, oh my gosh, I feel so much better. I feel able to do this, that, or the other, whatever it was that we were working on, which is great. I get the validation. It's very good. Uh, but it's a little bit more challenging when you're actually wanting that from outside, or when you're requiring that from
Yes.
outside. Now, we can frame it so that you can become your own external source of validation.
Right.
But I'll bet you have another way of approaching it that would be even better. Okay, we have a question. I never seem to do enough. How can you help? Oh, well, my dear,
Oh,
that depends, because everyone is individual. So it seems to me probably you have a belief system, and it may stem from a mass thought form.
mhm.
Because now I'm making a blanket assumption that this is a woman talking to us, because this typically is an issue that comes up more for women and then for men.
Right.
And so as women, especially after the women's movement took hold in the 60s and 70s and maybe 80s in Western civilizations, Western cultures, and I'm particularly thinking about the US culture, the American culture. It's like in the old days, as it were, we there was an assumption that the woman in a family, at any rate, I'm not talking about single women because we always had to do everything. Um, but in a family, it's like the woman would take care of the household stuff and the guy would take care of the work, the external, outside the house, and would bring in money to support the household and so on and so on and so forth. So what happened then is that professional women ended up having a job and doing 30 hours of housework a week. So they did surveys on all this, and what they found was that seriously, professional women were working 70 and 80-hour weeks, even if they only had a 40-hour a week workload, right. Theoretically, and so where was I going with this? Oh, I never seem to do enough was the actual question. So it's impossible to keep up with that. Is what I'm trying to say.
Well, and the other piece to that is somewhere in our background, we were seeking validation for something, and then we were getting mixed messages back. Yes. You did really well here, but you didn't do this.
Well, yeah. I mean, how do you even set your priorities that way?
You can't. You can't, because you're getting mixed messages. And so when you're getting the mixed messages, your self-confidence is impaired because you do seem like, I just can't do anything right. I can't do enough to please this person. I can't do enough to please the external world.
Right. So instead of having a belief that says, hey, wait a minute, I'm whole and complete of myself and whatever I'm doing is what I can do and that's fine. Yeah. We've taken on this mass thought form belief that basically says you have to be Superwoman.
Right. Or a Superman, because there are single men that are raising families.
Yeah. So, I was speaking in a general sense. I know there are always exceptions, and we're not trying to exclude you. Honestly, we're not. We're trying to be inclusive here, but sometimes the language.
We are totally inclusive here. So the thing is that part of that, and I know in a previous taping we did go into self-esteem, and we did talk about self-esteem.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about I can never do enough, that's a long-term development. So yes, self-confidence is impacted, but also so is self-esteem. So self-esteem is internal and long-term.
Right.
So if it's been years that someone has told you, oh, you did really well here, but you know what? Why didn't you do this? Or you could have done better here. And getting criticism and praise at the same time can impact both self-confidence and self-esteem. So I think we're dealing with an issue of the self-esteem is impacted as well as self-confidence.
Yes. Because what happens, and I'm sure everybody listening knows this, is you internalize that stuff. Right?
You do. And I see we got a statement. You're talking to me today. My mom criticized me all the time.
I can't imagine what that felt like.
Oh, been there, done that.
And okay, everybody's situation is different, obviously. And I'm not trying to run a pity party here, but I am just going to mention. The core wound from when I was a kid was that I was the second child, second daughter. And I was my father's favorite because we were both interested in mathematics and music. And until his son was born when I was 8.
Mhm.
Now, my sister stayed the favorite of my mother's side of the family. My half brother instantly became the favorite and the one drawing all the attention from my father.
Uh-huh.
And then I actually have a half sister on the other side, on my mother's side, who's 12 years younger than I am. So she was the baby of the family. So it was like
Ah, ah,
there was seriously no way that I could proof's not the word, prove in the testing sense,
right.
that I was going to get, that I was going to be able to prove that I was worthy of the attention that I was no longer getting. Because it wasn't about anything that I did or didn't do. And it wasn't, now here was the interesting part for me. It wasn't something I could change.
Right.
Do you see what I mean? I mean,
Yeah.
I couldn't become a boy so that my father could have the son he longed for.
Mhm.
Right? I couldn't be a cute little girl. I was actually the only one with curly hair in the family, but I was going to say curls. You know, it's like I couldn't be the conventional cute kid for my
Right.
mother's side of the family, and I couldn't be a boy for my father's side of the family. It's just, and you know, actually, when I think about my relationships, they very often would break up because there was something I couldn't do. I'm thinking of the guy I was lived with in Vermont. He was he really wanted kids while he was young enough to enjoy them.
Mhm.
He was the middle of 6,
Ooh.
and he kind of felt like his father never got down on the floor and played with them, and he wanted to do that for his kids, and he kept getting involved with women who were focused on their careers or had already decided they didn't want to have children. Or the one after me, she had 2 kids who were, I think, 13 and 11 when they got married, and she'd
Uh-huh.
already had her tubes tied. I was like, how? Not going to happen. But you know, we got on perfectly well, and I'm sure wouldn't have been a insuperable obstacle if everything else had worked. And
Right.
we were 3 years together, and we split up perfectly amicably. And I was actually at this wedding. The 2 attendants were her teenagers, preteens,
Uh-huh.
but I was the unofficial bridesmaid because I was the one with the checklists. And people who didn't know us well assumed that I was her sister because in physical type, we were very similar.
Oh my gosh. Oh, how
You know,
funny.
it's like, oh, it's your sister's the one with the checklist. Okay. Okay. But my point is, and I do have one, that very frequently when we're feeling incompetent, it is because we've come up against somebody else's picture of what we're supposed to do and at what
Mhm.
level, instead of that inward identity that says, well, actually, what I like to do is this. Because we normally will be good at things that we like to do. It's relatively rare for people to spend a lot of time doing something they really, really enjoy and be bad at it. I mean, again, there are exceptions. I mean, I know people who enjoy the process of cooking, but all the results are just unspeakable or uneatable, at least. Yeah. Now that's it's more a question
No.
of what your standards are.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You know, and getting back to not being able to do enough, can we help that? Yes, definitely. There's a lot of research that shows that hypnotherapy can help you with that.
Mhm.
And it's relatively quickly, within like 4 to 6 sessions, it can be helped. And I'm sure in Geotran, it can be 30 to 40 seconds that we can help somebody to overcome their feelings of not being enough.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So the way I go about it is, as I said earlier, it's typically that we're going to say, okay, where are you picking this up from? This lack of confidence, this feeling that you can't do enough, this weight of expectation. Yeah. And we'll just go back to where that is. So let me just as a quick example, I know we've done examples like this before, but let me take you, Dr. Kevin, for a moment, if I may.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right. I'm just asking in the field, what is the earliest example of this in your specific life? Oh, I mean, we know what it is, but let's go have a look anyway. Now, it's no secret to people who know Dr. Kevin and people on this line, because we've discussed this before, that Dr. Kevin was adopted.
Right.
Now, can you imagine something more likely to hit your self-confidence and your self-esteem than trying to figure out why you were adopted? Yeah, it's going to be there in your belief system. You're going to have a default belief, which sort of says, oh, they didn't want me. And if they didn't want me, it's somehow my fault. It's somehow something about me.
The kid always takes it as it's their fault.
Always. They always do. I mean, they just do. In fact, pretty much anybody under 10 is whatever's going on around them with the adults in their lives or anything else, come to that, they will actually automatically think it's about them. So you have to be, if God forbid, you are divorced or are thinking about getting divorced and you have children under 10. Yeah, statement. Divorce has wrecked my self-confidence as well. Yeah, absolutely. But here's the point I was getting to, is that if you have kids under 10, unless you sit them down and say to them in a way that they can really hear and understand, this has nothing to do with you, they're going to think it does.
It does. They're gonna blame themselves.
They are. You know, if only I had been more this or less that or different in some way, right?
Yeah.
I wonder if my parents would have got divorced if I had been a boy. I mean, I'm just doing a thought experiment here, because in fact, he did actually get divorced from my stepmother, his second wife, as soon as their son was 18 and went to university. They were gone. I know it wasn't about me. Okay, but connecting that back in with, then if you are the person getting divorced, whether you ask for the divorce or the other person asks for the divorce, or it's just obvious that this is not a workable marriage or relationship, yeah, that's going to hit your self-confidence, because we have a mass thought form, a cultural mass thought form that says you're supposed to be able to make this work. And if you don't, somebody's at fault.
Yeah.
I mean, do you understand how unusual that was when, at least in certain states in the US, no fault divorce came in? I mean, this is a shocker to the culture.
It was an earthquake.
It really was.
Because it recognized that neither party to the divorce caused it. It was just something external that just interfered with the marriage in some way.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's an assumption that you've made this vow and your commitment may be there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But circumstances change, or you don't know that person well enough, or you don't know yourself well enough. Or there's just a level of incompatibility, or you just don't know. what could happen. I mean, I love seeing people get married. I think that triumph of optimism over experience, as Dr. Johnson put it, is really wonderful.
Yeah.
But when it doesn't work, of course, it's going to affect you and how you feel about you, and you're going to feel like a failure.
Yeah.
You really, I mean, this is almost inevitable.
Yeah. You know, it's very fascinating that you bring that up, because my sister, who is adopted as well,
Ooh, yeah.
she worked very hard and got straight A's through school, got straight A's through college, went to law school, graduated with, I think, with like a 4.3 grade point average in law school, and became a CEO of a law firm. And I asked her, I said, how did you do that? And she just said, Kevin, I just had to feel like I could accomplish something. She said, my self-esteem was so low that I had to work harder to prove to myself that I could be worth something.
Yeah.
And so she turned it into a success.
And you can do that. And that is great when it happens. It's really good.
But it's hard to do, and not everyone knows how to do that. There's some people that just don't know what they need to do to feel better. So it's interesting. Research has gone on into adoptions and how it impacts the child. And initially, what they were saying was that the mother-child bond was created at the moment that the child was laid upon the mother's chest, shortly after birth. Well, it starts earlier than that. It starts in utero. The child recognizes the mother's heartbeat and the mother's sounds. They recognize the mother's voice in utero. And so at birth, when they're separated from their mother and they're presented with another mother, they used to think that that new mother could step into the role and the child would bond with the mother. That's not the case. So when the adopted child is presented with a new mother, they're confused because they don't recognize that person. That's not my mother. That is not my mother.
Right.
And so that is a prevailing feeling throughout their lives. And so unless they get help and therapy to understand that it had nothing to do with them, like we said earlier, they think it's their fault, completely their fault.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I fortunately had the opportunity to meet my birth mother before she passed away.
Right.
And when we met, we talked for a long time, and she had a lot of guilt around the adoption.
So where's her self-confidence?
Her self-confidence was in the toilet.
Yeah.
She had no self-confidence because her child was removed from her. She felt as though she was a failure to the child.
Right. Yeah.
And
these are tough decisions to make.
They are tough. They're not easy decisions. And that decision was not made by her because she was a minor when she had me.
Oh my word. Talk about making it even worse. I mean, so think about what we were saying earlier, or what I was saying earlier, about kids under 10, and things happen to and with and between the adults around them, and they think it's about them, right? How much more so when it's someone like your birth mom who was not fully grown up, who's probably already feeling terrible about having even got pregnant at all.
Right.
And
There's a
yet
lot of shame.
she does not have the power and authority to actually, for the disposition of her child,
Right.
to whom she is bonded.
Right.
Just in terms of what you're saying.
And the bond occurred in utero. So
and the bond goes both ways, is what I'm trying to say.
It goes both ways. So the bond was broken. It impaired her self-confidence, but also her self-esteem.
Both internal and external. Yeah.
Both internal and external.
Yeah.
And do you think abusers have higher self-esteem than the rest? No, I think they have lower self-esteem.
Yeah.
I think it's a power over situation with abusers.
Yeah.
They have to feel like they have power over somebody, so they do it through abuse because that's the thing they know. So.
If we take the extreme case of abuse, which would be malignant narcissists, it's like they have this great gaping void inside them, and they have no way to fill it, so they depend on that external. It's not even external validation necessarily. It's like acclaim or attention, or that's what they find validating. It's not whether they have actually accomplished something. They will take credit from other people.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
And there are very high functioning narcissists who end up being like CEOs of major companies and in other public positions. But actually, when you actually look at their actual record of accomplishment, it can often be very low.
And that can be filled with a great deal of failure.
Yes. And, so they're trying to fill that void with the energy of people around them. And therefore, it does not matter to them. I'll go beyond that, but I'll finish my sentence first. It doesn't matter to them that they have hurt or upset another person in their life. In fact, they're doing it on purpose because it's all grist to the mill. It's all attention. All attention is good attention for a narcissist.
Right.
And that happens to a lesser extent to other kinds of abusers. It's almost like they're saying, look what I can do. At least I can make you hurt.
Right. And it's not my fault that you hurt.
Oh no, because because you're stupid, clumsy, lame, incompetent. Whatever their projected excuses du jour. They're throwing that at you, God forbid, and that feeds something in them. Yeah, and you'll notice how this goes hand in hand with the kind of abusive position of, well, nobody would want you besides me.
Right.
Because you're ugly, stupid, clumsy, whatever it is. And I'm sitting there going, yeah, well, if you loved yourself, you wouldn't want this person either by that description. It's like, you're setting the bar really low here. I'm not saying that's an excuse. I'm just saying.
Right. And there's a codependence in there somewhere. So.
Yes. And that's why empaths and narcissists are like magnetically attracted to each other. Because empaths, and I've actually seen this stated in public, and I just want to, the only thing I can do is sigh in disbelief. What I really wanted to do is go and smack the empath. I am not an empath. Have you noticed? Okay, good. Now, see, an empath has very thin boundaries. An empath does not really know the difference between what she, and there are male empaths too, he or she is feeling and what the other person is feeling. They feel it as if they're feeling it themselves. So that has a projective quality about it. So an empath will look at a full-blown narcissist and say, oh, the poor thing. That poor thing's obviously been hurt. That's the only reason he or she would hurt another person. And, I'm going to go in there and give them so much love and support that they'll start having that self-esteem and self-confidence, and they won't have to play these stupid mind games with everybody else. But here's the problem. The reason that narcissists don't get therapy is because they don't think anything's wrong with them.
Right. It's everything. It's everyone else that's wrong.
It's everybody else's fault. They're fine.
Yeah.
And an empath who doesn't know the difference will soak up that projection.
Mhm.
Oh, well, if only I hadn't, spoken up, or if I hadn't challenged this, or if I had fixed the dinner 5 minutes earlier. It's nonsense, people.
It has nothing to do with you.
It's nothing to do with you. Yeah. It's like, this person's got a broken leg. And you can dance around that all you want, but you didn't break it, and it's not your leg.
Right.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
So getting back to what we can do about this. Okay. Now, when we discussed whether to have this conversation, Dr. Kevin proposed that let's talk about self-esteem versus self-confidence. And I said, okay, well, what's the difference? Because I guess it just wasn't clear to my own mind. And you said very properly, well, self-esteem is internal, self-confidence is external. And I think that's true. Now, because I work in the internal department, I go immediately for self-esteem. And we know how to reset your self-esteem. Okay. So if you have 100% self-esteem, then you are more likely to get that external validation and to believe it when you get it.
Yes.
Is everybody leaning in at this point?
That's a part 2 of that. You have
There's a part 2. Okay, so there's an intro to the second half of this conversation. All right. So you all know, because I keep saying this to you, that there is a way to reset your self-esteem in your internal programming, like super easily. And we're going to do it again right now.
Please,
okay?
Please.
Okay, so it's right hand clockwise. Now, clockwise is top, left, bottom, right hand clockwise. I'm just going to move my camera so you can see me a little bit more easily and push back my chair here. One of the reasons that we architects like wheeled furniture so that we can just go way back from our drawing board. This chair does not, in fact, have wheels. Oh, well. Anyway, so right hand clockwise, and it's on the midline between the breasts, and we're just going to say 4-2.
4-2.
Okay. Now, all of Geotran, all of this inner programming that I keep going on about, it's based around points. So that's the point right there. That represents, you can't even see me because of the bottom thing. Right there, that point represents, that's the switch on for self-esteem. So it's points, numbers, and geometries. Geometries will locate that point in the field, which is multidimensional. And the number corrects that point in the field. Yeah? So 4-2 with the circle goes to that point for self-esteem, and it says, hey, this is what it feels like to switch that on. Okay. So right now, Dr. Kevin has 100% self-esteem. Yes. It also covers self-worth and self-love and self-value. Yay!
Yes. Yay!
Right. So please, if you have any kind of self-confidence issue, at least reset your self-esteem every day. 4-2. See how quick that is? Love it. Okay. And there are a whole bunch of other subconscious clearings, which if you go to my group on, just contact me on Facebook, which is Kyre Adept on Facebook. I also have 2 groups, and one is called Dragon Divas here. I just renamed it. So Dragon Divas. And also I have about 6 websites. The one you want to go to is adeptactivations.com. And of course, Dr. Kevin also has a website, which is kevinrichardsontherapy.com.
Yes.
And his email is kevinrichardsontherapy@gmail.com. And my email is drkyreadept, all is one word, lowercase, @gmail.com. Also, you can always find us. We are here for you. Okay, getting along up. So if we start with that inner stuff, I would then, as I said earlier, I would go to where you picked up a lack of confidence, a belief that says, I can never do enough. I can never do it well enough. Oh, I ran one for my entire life until about 3 weeks ago that said,
Wow.
yeah, seriously. And I work in this field, I mean, damn it. Okay. And that was, I never get it right. Now, I was particularly looking at romantic relationships, but actually, I run that one pretty often in my professional work too. And I'm not saying that with my clients, I get it wrong, because I don't. It's if I'm working for someone, if I'm working, like when I was working for my teacher, Dorothy Espio, who created Geotran, we temperamentally, we were very, very different. And if she criticized something that I did, even if I felt pretty good about it, that's what came up. I never get it right. And I picked this up as a 3-year-old from my father. It was never my belief to start with.
Wow.
And so I used my tools and went back and cleared it, and it's not running anymore. Now, if I get something wrong, I say, "Oh, can you show me how that needs to be, or what else do you need from me right now?"
Right.
So I'll just ask rather than beating myself up. Makes a nice change.
Yeah.
So I would always start with the internal stuff because that's my particular perspective. But I would love to know, Dr. Kevin, how clinical hypnotherapy would shift that energy around confidence and receiving validation. Okay, so even before I hand it over to you, which I really am going to do in 30 seconds, I think a lot of this is also about receiving. I really do. Yeah, and that is an internal setting. So it might be, if you constantly struggle with self-confidence or self-esteem, I think it really would be worth asking yourself, and use your muscle testing, what % are you able to receive validation? Right? So for instance, let's go with, we're the ones talking to you right now. So, hey, what % am I able to receive external validation? 0 to 50, 50 to 60, 60 to 70, 70 to 80, 80, 90, 90 to 100, 90, 95, 90, 91, 2, 3, 4, 5, 95%, which is pretty darn good. But, once we're off the camera, I will go work on that. So, Dr. Kevin, what % are you able to receive external validation? 0 to 50, 50 to 60, 60 to 70, 70 to 80, 70, 75, 70, 71, 2, 3, 4, 5, 75%. So that means 25% of your system, even if somebody comes along and proves to you how fabulous, intelligent, and worthy you are, and you have a spouse, so man, this should be on tap. Right. You can only receive it 75% of the time, or at 75% of the strength, and the other 25% is going, yeah, right, or yes.
And that's interesting. That's interesting you bring that up, because I went through a period where I was just, I'm not good enough, I'm not doing enough, blah, 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 blah. And my mentor, who I disagree with, said, you have no commitment to what you're doing. I question your commitment.
Really? Interesting.
That's after putting in about close to $5,000 into it, and being on every call and following through with all the tasks that I was given.
So you were you were soaking up that mentorship. It's not like you were not showing up.
Yeah, I was soaking it up. And then because I didn't have enough media on Facebook, it was, well, I just question your commitment. You don't have a commitment to this. You're not committed. So that really,
What I found.
I had, and my spouse said, stop it. Just stop doing this. This is what you do all the time. Quit.
Now that's the
beating
problem with
yourself up.
spouses. They know you all too well.
They know, yes. And it's like, stop beating yourself up. You are totally committed to what you're doing. But what your mentor doesn't realize is all of the obstacles that you are facing right now. So at that time, our air conditioner broke. We had no air for 3 weeks. Trying to deal with 100+ degree weather and no air conditioning. And
Stressed.
yeah. And and maybe 2 hours of sleep a night. So
I woke up at 2:22 yesterday, and it took somebody on Facebook to point out to me that it was the 22nd of October as well. It's like, I'm sorry, I wasn't honest.
I usually wake up at 2:30 and I'm up the rest of the day.
I was on that retreat last weekend.
Yeah.
I actually slept till 7 o'clock in the morning every morning.
Oh,
I got back to my own house. I'm waking up at 3:30 again. Anyway, I'm sorry.
So anyway, it's how do we deal with it using hypnotherapy?
Yeah.
There's different approaches. The one approach I really like is the inner child work. And that's where we are going back to your inner child.
Mm-hmm.
And we're letting the inner child know that we are the adult, that we now are taking care of you, and that you're going to be okay. And it's okay. And we let our inner child know that we love them and that we care for them and that we think of them.
Yeah.
And that we love them. And that seems to help to alleviate some of the self-esteem issues.
The commonest thing I say to my inner child, insofar as I talk to her, which is actually not that often, but clients, is this is not about you.
Yeah.
That's part of the thing that as we mature, we really get a hold of, is the distinction between the things for which we are responsible,
Mm-hmm.
for which we are not responsible.
Right.
Because to assume that you are responsible for everything going on in the world is a very heavy burden to bear.
Yes.
And not helpful, because you can't actually change most of it.
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's going back to my birth mother. When I met her, like I said, she was filled with guilt and remorse and everything. And so without doing hypnosis, which I wanted to do, but she's like, oh no. I worked around it.
Sure.
And basically said, well, let's talk to your inner child. Let's can you picture, visualize, and imagine your inner child? And I said, if you can do that, you can go back to your inner child and tell them that the greatest gift that you gave your child was a life with a different parent, because you knew you could not provide that life.
Yeah. That you were making that choice out of love rather than out of
rejection. And that helped, because I noticed after we talked, it was a lot less guilt.
Yeah.
And so when I saw her 4 more times before she passed, and we continued to talk about it, even up to the last 3 weeks of her life.
Mm-hmm.
And she finally got it. She finally said, "Oh, so I really did love you." And it was really love. I said, yes, it was. It was the greatest love that a mother can give a child. It's the greatest love. So it was, go ahead.
Well, and someone, it seems to me, just thinking about your situation in particular, that quite a bit of this is about forgiveness as well.
Forgiveness.
Yeah, and forgiveness relates to self-confidence. In at least as we're talking about self-confidence right now.
Right, it does.
In the sense that we carry around these burdens all the time.
Right.
That make us feel unworthy or unlovable or what have you. They get internalized, that then affects the self-esteem. So in your situation, and certainly how I look at my parents, forgiveness is great. Forgiveness is just like, okay, you know what? I get it. You were doing the best you could with what you had. Totally okay. I do my positive points for love, forgiveness, and choice. And then I forgive myself for having chosen this particular family to be born into, for not loving myself enough to extricate myself faster, for taking on their crap. I mean, you know?
Yeah.
Because there's a part of you that took it on, Kevin. You feel bad about this whole situation of being adopted when it was never about you. It was never something you had any choice or control over. So if you're going to make up a story about it, you may as well make up a story that's beneficial to you.
Yeah.
But what most adopted kids do is they make up a story that they are unlovable on one level or another.
And the adopted parents, they don't provide that story.
No, of course not.
They just said they wanted to give you up. They just gave you up.
Yeah.
And we wanted you. So you were wanted by us, but you weren't wanted by your mother. And they don't realize the damage that creates to the self-confidence and to the self-esteem.
How about you forgive them too?
Yeah.
I'm saying not just to Dr. Kevin, because I know Dr. Kevin's done all this work, but all of you out there in transformation land, the absolutely best thing you can do for your health, wealth, mental health, happiness, relationships, and any other aspect of your life that you would really prefer to go a little bit better than it is at the moment, including your self-confidence, is check every day, morning and evening. Is there someone I need to forgive? Is there something I need to forgive something about me? Do I need to forgive somebody else? Do I need to just anything?
Right.
Is there something? The way Edwene Gaines puts it in the 4 Spiritual Laws of Prosperity, she asks, is there anyone I have accidentally or on purpose put outside my heart? How do you know when somebody's put outside your heart? It's when you have forgiven them, and I do include politicians in this, when you have forgiven them, you can wish them well from a place of neutrality and detachment. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. When you haven't,
Dusty's joining us.
when you haven't forgiven them, there's a part of you going,
yeah.
Which cats are especially good at. So, I mean, they're obviously trying to tell us something here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, get over yourself.
Get over yourself is actually pretty good. I mean, it doesn't land well normally, but in fact, that's what a lot of us need to do a lot of the time. It's like, oh, please, just get over it, would you? It's just not helping you.
Yes, that's true.
It's keeping you in the past. It's keeping you anxious about the present. Let's be in the now.
Yeah, let's just be in the now.
Let's just be in the now. I mean, in the now, a lot of this stuff is just not happening in the now.
Right.
Oh, great question. I'm going to let you address that, Dr. Kevin. How can we help our children with esteem and confidence?
Oh, golly. We have to look to ourselves and change the message that we're providing.
Yeah.
We also have to look at what are they accomplishing and what are they not accomplishing and what do they want to accomplish. And kids have a pretty good idea of what they want to do.
Yeah.
And they may not know how to do it. So we can help them and be the parent that is, well, okay, if this is what you want to do, then let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's figure out a way that we can do it together. And that will help their self-esteem. And the more that they can accomplish increases their self-confidence and their self-esteem. But it has to be a steady message of, yeah, you can do that. Yeah, you have, let's look at what you need to do in order to accomplish that.
Yeah. It's kind of the opposite of perfectionism.
Yes.
Yeah. Because perfectionism is saying if you don't get straight A's, then you're a loser. In whatever context that comes up.
Oh, yeah. I heard that a lot.
Yeah. And I was the academic one in my family, and I was so bored at school that I didn't actually do well in terms of my marks. So as someone or other says it, I think it's in a Peanuts strip, says something like, there is no burden in life heavier than having a great potential.
Yeah.
If you can love yourself, be confident in yourself, in the glorious human mess that you are at any given moment, then that's the message that your kids will pick up too. Yeah. Hey, I tried this. It didn't work. Maybe I need to change something, but at least I made a worthy effort.
Yeah. And kind of say, let's, and go back and kind of what we say, do an autopsy on it. Go back and look at what happened and why it didn't work. But it wasn't the fault of the child that it didn't work necessarily. Yeah. Maybe the child didn't have the necessary skills at the moment that they needed them. Yeah. Yeah. And maybe what we needed to do was help them get the skills that they needed. And maybe as the parent, adjust the task so that it is achievable.
And that's also just lots of encouragement. I mean, as I know this example is used all the time, when a toddler is learning how to walk and they fall over because they're gonna, you don't stand around laughing at them and making them feel bad. You say, great job, let's do that again, like a couple of feet further. Yeah. Well, everybody's got that inner child in there. We may not acknowledge her very often, but she's in there, or him, of course.
Yeah. We've learned by our failures.
Yeah.
But it's how we interpret our failure as being a step closer to our success.
Yes.
And as a parent, we want to applaud the effort, but also give them the encouragement that they can be successful at it. And what we need to do is figure out a way of getting you what you need to do that.
And I, for one, keep a bottle of champagne in my fridge at all times.
And you can celebrate the success. And oh my God, where did the time go?
Yeah, it's that. I was just going to say, it's that time again. Hey, everybody who managed to sit through this whole conversation, thanks.
It was kind of convoluted, but the bottom line is either one of us can help you.
Yeah.
And either one of us are available for private sessions. And we're willing and able to offer you the assistance that's needed.
And we have tremendous self-esteem and self-confidence when it comes to our work. So we can lend you some of ours. Until next week, have a good time, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you, Dr. Kevin. Thank you,
All right. Thank you, Dr. Kyre. much.